Thank you.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're on the air.
Welcome back to Life Unscripted. My name is Melody Garcia.
And I'm Janie Lacy.
So here we go again for another. This is episode number 2 for the new year 2019. And we continue to bring the powerhouse. Today, we have none other than AJ. And AJ is basically another powerhouse that, divine alignment, Janie. I happened to be scrolling to Facebook, and I came across this man speaking some life and truth and really completely 100% authentic on his breakdown to breakthrough. Well, it in the world that there's filled with, unfortunately, unauthentic people, the energy space that AJ came from was literally just somebody who was speaking from his heart. In fact, there were tears, if I'm not mistaken, on his journey as he reflected back. But before we bring him in, let me just read a little bit of his bio. So AJ Mirhzad is the author of the best-selling book, Master Your Inner Game, The Mind-Body Solution, Train Your Brain for Permanent Weight Loss. He has studied exercise science and nutrition due to his passion for health and earned a master's degree in psychology. Oh, you're going to have fun with this one, JB. Due to his fascination and the mindset of weight loss. His cutting-edge approach to permanent weight loss insists the key to a healthy body is a healthy brain. His clients are walking proof that this is true, and there are hundreds of them. So, on top of this, he has been inducted into the Personal Trainer Hall of Fame. He's also been his writing has been actually featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, Huffington Post, Thrive Global, and Bodybuilding.com. So on top of being a master in the health lifestyle, AJ is also a keynote speaker, a transformational coach, and he has had numerous appearances. And for those of you that are curious about who is this wonderful man we're interviewing today, we are going to be dropping his media links, but we're going to kick off this interview by saying, welcome to Life Unscripted, AJ.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
Oh, we are so grateful that you are here. So tell us, let's start your story, because I don't want to ruin the surprise. As I was sharing with Janie, I saw you, and you were in your authentic space that even the emotions were truly there as you reflected back of where you came from. So let's start from the beginning. Who are you? Other than the accolades I'm reading, let's talk about from the beginning.
Absolutely. So I have quite a long story, and I could take us far, far back. I started off being an immigrant. My parents came here when I was a year old. And of course, oftentimes when you transition into a new country, there's a lot of changes. And my family faced their pride being taken away. My father, he didn't take it so well. So growing up, I grew up in an abusive household. And as long as I can remember, my father was very verbally abusive for me, my younger brothers, fat, stupid, lazy. And then he got physically abusive. That really affected my childhood. But what really broke my heart was experiencing a lot of domestic violence in my house. My father used to drink and hit my mom, and this went on for about a decade. So as you know, as a young child, when you see two people that you love in very violent situations, it creates a lot of trauma. And because of that trauma, I didn't know how to deal with it as a young boy. So that led me to eating food to comfort myself. So I became very overweight as a young boy, and as I got older. At my heaviest, I was 60 pounds overweight. And once the food didn't numb me, I moved on to drugs and alcohol. And I became addicted to just really turning off my mind. A lot of flashbacks of my childhood and the violent situation with my mother and my father. And I was drinking until I blacked out. Once alcohol stopped working, I went off to illicit drugs, cocaine, ecstasy, crystal meth, you name it. And I was putting myself in these situations where I was blacking out, drinking, taking painkillers, overdosing, ending up in the ER. And this was a big part of my life until in my mid-20s, I hit rock bottom. I actually had a coma, the overdose that put me in a coma for a week, 5 days. I was struggling, fighting for my life. And coming out of that, that was really my breakthrough, and the realization that if I continue on this path, I'm going to die. So that's when I decided to clean up my whole life. I sobered up, quit the drinking, the drugs. I started to get serious about my fitness. Luckily, I was able to lose the 60 pounds. And from there, I decided to become a personal trainer and really just understand what led to my demise. Why did I almost die that day? What happened in my past? I began to look back on everything from a different lens, more so from love and forgiveness. And I came to realize that I was not meant to die that day, and I have a bigger purpose for my life. And that's when I decided to start my business. And I went to school. I got my master's in psychology because I knew that my mind was the cause of my demise. And from that point on, this was about 12 years ago, my whole life changed, and I started to improve myself, and I vowed to help others with the things that I've learned on my journey.
Wow, AJ, I am just so happy of your transparency and your being in this authentic space, because we do want to use our pain to be able to fuel our purpose. And there's so many things that I'm an addiction psychotherapist. So hearing your story, I understand how our childhood wounds and those types of things can affect us to fulfill those voids, especially if we weren't given a voice as a young child. And having a sister that died due to the hands of domestic violence situation, I have a heart for victims in that. So when you think about everything that you've gone through and you were down at that rock bottom place and you took that, what were some of the, because these are the things that our listeners like to hear, what happened for you in order to realize that you had no other choice but to use that pain to fuel your purpose? And what were some of the steps that you had taken to be the AJ that we see today?
Yeah, I truly feel that I connected with a higher power. I feel like fighting for my life and having that near-death experience, I was pronounced dead and they put me in a coma to revive me. And I was going through the ups and downs. My family was by my bed the entire time I was at the hospital. But I had some interesting experiences when I flatlined, and I literally saw my whole life flash before my eyes. And coming out of that, I came to realize that I'm here for a purpose. And I guess prior to that, I looked at life very differently. When I was given a second chance, I was filled with gratitude, but at the same time, given the chance to now make something of myself. Because if I would have died that day, it would have been born here, died there, but didn't do much with his life. So I said, now I get a second lease, and I want to now impact people in a larger way.
So when you want to impact people in a larger way, what would you say? I'm always about that North Star, that our North Star is that's what's going to dictate our yeses and our nos and our purpose. So when you think about your impact, when people are in your presence or the people that you work with or you coach, what is it that you want them to take away from having AJ come in their life and help them with their transformation?
Yes, that's a great question. So I really didn't have much of a purpose, of course. In the past, I was a victim. I was blaming my parents. Why did I live in this, broken household, so much violence, so much negativity? They never supported me. They didn't care for me. I was bullied in school, and I was upset with the teachers and the whole school system. As we're working jobs, not making much money, the economy sucks, and I was blaming everything outside of myself. And it wasn't until I started blaming myself, like, yes, these are my circumstances, but also I'm telling myself a story of victimhood, a story that, woe is me, everything's against me, my life sucks. And when I was given a second lease on life, I said, you know what, how can I change my story? And that's when I really got into understanding psychology and the fact that we're constantly telling ourselves stories. And the story I was telling myself was not serving me. So in that rock bottom, I created a new story, that of helping people, but also finding my purpose, because that's when I decided to sober up, focus on my health, and really become more developed, understanding the skills of communication. In those first 20 years of my life, I had a really bad stutter. So I was very shy and introverted. I never really spoke. So I started taking public speaking classes, reading books about marketing and sales, and just becoming a better person. So I feel like a big part of it is, one, just being aware of the story that you're telling yourself. And then number two, finding out your big why. I feel everyone has a superpower. And my biggest goal in life is to help people find their superpower. What is their zone of genius or amazing skill that will both fulfill them, but allow them to help people at a larger scale?
AJ,
okay.
Go ahead, sorry. Yeah. AJ, real quickly. So you said something here about changing your story. And a lot of people does fall into that victim mentality. because life can get very unfair. And it, you know, the one thing that I've noticed in my own challenges and trials, right? When it rains, it pours. And it's going to take that absolute grit to get through them. It's not like one little thing that happens and you're moving on along. It's literally, it's one big thing after another, after another, after another. And the one thing that I have, that all our guests have shared so far that is very consistent, right? Because I'm also an international media space. So we do television interviews, I do magazine, and then now we have this podcast, is this: the most successful people at one point in their life has been suicidal and depressed and down out of luck. And then that breakthrough happens, right? So I'm very curious for our listeners, with everything, the trauma that has happened, even stemming from childhood, being exposed to that violence that surrounded your youth. What story did you then end up rewriting? Because Tony Robbins has this saying that says life is happening for you, not to you. So how did you unscript those stories of the voices in your head saying you're not good enough and you're never going to amount to anything, and everything else that you basically, those limiting beliefs or the false beliefs? How did you unscript it? What stories did you start telling yourself?
Yes, great question. I have a giant plaque in my living room, and it says, when you let go, life will just flow. And a big part of the rewriting the story was letting go to this entire experience of life. Life gave me these parents, it gave me these setbacks, these experiences, this trauma, all these challenges to make me a better man. Now I look back, and when I was younger, I would blame my parents, blame the school system, blame all these other people for this crappy life I had, for being depressed and for being addicted to drugs. But I realized that if I didn't go through everything, I would not be the man I am today. So if I'm going to blame my parents for the domestic violence, the abuse, the neglect, then I should blame them for making me a better man, for inspiring myself to become educated, to start a business, to help people at a larger scale. Because I would not know the life I had if I didn't go through all that. So in a simple sense, everything happens for you, as you said, and every single person experience is essentially a mirror for you to learn, how can I get better? What is this teaching me, and how can I improve?
So when you took those moments to kind of think about, okay, I came from this, what did I learn? How did I improve? We also know that it's a journey, that we, especially when we come from dysfunctional, abusive backgrounds, and we've struggled with addiction issues, in recovery, we always say one day at a time, moment at a moment. So when you think about the things that you teach clients, when you use your own story to help inspire them, what are some of the things that you have to continuously to do to stay on track, to keep the North Star in your focus, and to keep your purpose? I think a lot of times people, when they hear our stories, they also want to know the how. How do you maintain that sobriety? How do you maintain, we can still go back to that victim mentality, these types of things. But as you continue to move forward, what are some of the tools that you use that you also teach some of your clients?
Yes, absolutely. So that whole insight of letting go, that's essentially surrendering to life and loving what is. A great book by Byron Katie. And it's a simple philosophy that wherever you are, whether you're on the top of the mountain or the bottom of the valley, accept it with open arms. The biggest part of our suffering comes from expectation. I expect this moment to be different. I should be in a relationship. I should be single. I should be making more money. My business should be farther along. I should have less body fat. I should be a size 2. Whatever the story is an expectation. And when your current reality doesn't match that expectation, you suffer. So how about a different thought that everything is happening perfectly as it should? Yes, my bank account is not as big as I want it to be. Yes, I don't have the body that I idealize. Perhaps I want kids and I don't have them. But having those things is not going to make you that much happier than you are right now. That is a human paradox. We feel that all these things externally are going to give us a certain feeling. And oftentimes when we do accomplish those things, we're quite disappointed. I myself, I grew up very poor, the son of immigrants. So my biggest goal in life was to become a self-made millionaire. I want to live in this big 6,000 square foot mansion, drive a Bentley, have all these great things. You know what? I did that. I accomplished it, and I was on this high for 30 days. 30 days after living in my dream house, I fell into one of the deepest depressions that I did. I almost wanted to relapse back into the days that I was taking drugs because I thought this house, this car, the $1 million in my bank would make me fulfilled. It did not. It made me realize that nothing outside of me is going to make me happy. And that was a big breakthrough that I had, to just be happy in the present moment, because this is all that we have, this present moment. So if I'm happy now, then I'm going to be successful, because success is nothing more than a successful present moment.
Nothing outside of me can make me happy. I think that's going to be our tweet for today, AJ. And there's so much that we can unpack in that. You know, Stephen Covey talked about the locus of control, that 90% of life happens to us, 10% is what we can control, right? And a lot of times exactly what you're using that metaphor is that we'll focus on the 90%. Well, maybe all these other things, it's going to make me happy. But then at the end of the day, we find out we still feel lonely, we still feel a void, we still feel empty, that compulsion to still try to fill it. So to truly have self-awareness and to understand that is a constant process. So when you think about all the things that you've learned, because life is a continuous learning journey and you're still young, so we're going to continue to learn. So when you think about the greatest lesson that you've learned so far, what would you share some of the things with our viewers that they may not know about you, and some of the greatest lessons that continue to fuel you and move you forward in your purpose?
Yes, absolutely. So as we discussed, you know, your story is everything, and what makes human beings unique and why we end up creating civilizations and religions and laws and just this amazing life is the fact that we could tell stories. We have a part of our brain called the frontal lobe, and we could look toward the future, have an imagination, and we could create a collective story with other humans. This is America. This is money. This is marriage. And we all believe in that story. And that's why animals, they cannot create a global story and help each other out. So the fact that we can create this story is very powerful. We also have an individual story about ourselves. Recently, I got out of a relationship. So I went through a breakup, and that was very heartbreaking. And oftentimes I would catch myself and say, you know what? I'm never going to find love. I'm going to be lonely forever. I'm going to be single. I wanted to have a family. It's not on the cards. I could tell myself this story all day long. And guess what? I will create that perception, and I'll walk around the world with a very negative outlook towards relationships. Or I could say, this is the end of this relationship, but life has something better for me, and I've created a new story, and it's exciting. It's full of opportunity and possibility. So it's really looking at the story you're telling yourself, this simple act of self-observation. And there's many ways to go about that. We understand the power of meditation, contemplation, prayer, being in a place of silence. Ram Dass has a great quote. He says, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. So you could become observant of the stories that you're telling yourself. One thing that has helped me, and the moment I got out of the hospital 12 years ago, I started a journal. I have not missed a single day. My journal is where I share my deepest insecurities, my fears, my dreams, my desires. But I'm taking this story that's constantly going on in my head and putting down on paper. And I'm saying, you know what, is this story helping me? This story about my business, my relationships, my happiness, my friends, my current existence. I always rewrite the story, and I realize that when I rewrite the story, my perception changes and my reality starts to take fold.
First of all, congratulations to AJ and the fact that you're able to journal every day no matter what. Because that takes, again, it takes courage to do so. Even at the moments of pain, I'm a writer, and when I'm not feeling inspired, I get that block.
Yes.
Right? I get the block, and it's hard to even put things into paper. So let alone, in your case, face those emotional challenges, because it's not the physical that's the difficult. It's the emotional and the mental state of having that insane discipline to say, how am I looking at this story? So the story exits, and the next question is, what's next? Right? So from your shares, I'm picking up a lot of Tony Robbins, right? Teachings. Is he would you call your mentor and your influencer in your life primarily?
Yeah, you know, I have, let's say, a top 5 list of mentors, and Tony has been a big influence, absolutely.
Okay. And out of the top 5 list, outside Tony Robbins, because he's globally known, can you share out of the mentors that you have, who has been most impactful, and what was that one piece of advice that either rooted you or completely changed the direction of your life?
Yes, yes. It was going back to my rock bottom, near-death experience, coming out of the coma. And when I was in the hospital, I don't know even how this book got into my hands, but it was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And prior to that, I was just reading the books that I was given at school. I was never a recreational reader. And I remember just reading that book, and all of a sudden my mind was expanded, and I understood the ego and the fact that everything that has happened up until that moment was the fault of my mind because I was not present to the moment. And I realized that if I live now and I maximize this moment, my entire life changes. They say we have 2,000 to 3,000 thoughts per hour. 90% of those thoughts are repetitive about the past, about the future. But this is life right now as we speak. This is my reality. So I focus on being less in my head and more in the now. And when I live in the now, I live life to the fullest.
Got it. Now, obviously, attaining the success in business and the coaching platforms and the speaking platforms is not an easy journey. Can you share with me and with our listeners and our viewers, what has been the biggest challenges or lessons? I'd like to call them lessons, not mistakes, right? But what have been your 3 biggest lessons in growing your business that we can learn from?
Yes, absolutely. I truly feel that there's 2 types of motivation. There's push motivation and pull motivation, right? So when I was trying to lose the 60 pounds initially, I was pushing myself to follow a really boring diet. I had all these stories about being allergic to exercise. I did not want to wake up and do cardio, and I was pushing myself, thus losing weight and then gaining it. It was this yo-yo. And of course, being pulled to do something is quite different when it's your calling and you wake up excited. You wake up early just to do it, and you think about it all the time. You're obsessed. And I feel that we could all be pulled to do the things that take our life forward. And it's really understanding what type of emotional leverage can you create. I feel that we are all pulled emotionally by different things, whether it is our loved ones, whether it's public accountability. I'll give you an example. For me, I'm very big on integrity and follow through. My word is extremely important. If I tell someone I'm going to do something, it is done. So for many years, I had this insecurity about public speaking, and I started doing seminars. And then I said, you know what? I want to take my communication to the next level. I used to stutter, and I want to become a stand-up comic. Not to be a comic for a career, but just an experience to do a night of stand-up comedy. So what I did was very simple. I went on my Facebook, and I made an announcement. I said, I'm going to do a night of stand-up comedy by the end of this year. Hold me publicly accountable. From that point on, I've never done comedy. I don't know what I was doing, but I knew that if I publicly announced I was going to do it, that would create the emotional leverage to pull me toward that experience. So from that public Facebook post, people were asking me about it in conversations. And when are you going to do that comedy? And, luckily a friend of mine was a comic and said, I saw your post. There's an open mic night, October. You should do it. And from that point on, I showed up on stage, and literally everything just fell into place. It was a phenomenal experience. I far exceeded my own expectations, and it happened. But I realized because I tick through follow through. And if I say I'm going to do something, it's done. So public announcements help me to pull towards the things I need to do.
There's a couple of things that you had mentioned. For one, understanding your story and understanding how that fuels addictive, compulsive, unhealthy behaviors, getting to that rock bottom place, being able to start pulling yourself up one step at a time, then being able to discover your purpose. But what you just talked about was taking risk, taking risk. And sometimes, people are afraid to take risks, not only in business, but in life. So, when you think about, so I'm a business owner, I've owned a brick and mortar business and do a lot of different things with psychoeducation. But when you think about the business side of things, what are the biggest lessons, not only about business, but about personal relationships? And thank you for your vulnerability, because heartbreak and our brokenness in relationships can also reveal, we call it imago therapy. Imago therapy means that in the image of, we learn a lot about ourselves through our partners and through the breakups. Why do we keep attracting the same type of people, our unhealthiness around that? So what could be those 3 key nuggets that our listeners can take away from their introduction to AJ? And then if you can also let us know how they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the name of my company is Online Super Coach, and it's focused on 3 simple pillars. And these pillars are essentially used in every single business, whether it's an online business, brick and mortar business. If you focus on these 3 things, your business will grow. Typically, businesses don't grow because one of these areas are lacking. And it's really simple. It is attract, sell, and serve. So every business has an attraction model where they're generating clients, generating leads, customers. They have a sales process where they sell a product or a service and they're converting those leads. And then finally the service, the delivery, whether it's a tanning salon or an online coaching program, those 3 of those areas are fulfilled in a specific way. So I love simplicity. I love to teach simplicity. And oftentimes people are so engulfed in making business very complicated. I want to get to 6 figures. I don't know where to start or what to do. Well, if you think about your week, you think about, okay, these 3 pillars. What am I doing every day to attract my target client? What am I doing to sell them my services? Am I making offers to them? Am I getting them on phone calls, getting them in person? Am I doing webinars, videos? Am I selling all the time? And most importantly, the service. Are my clients signing up? Is my program great? Are they retaining long periods of time? Are they referring other people? Most importantly, are they getting results? And I find that if I give people the simple focus, well, hey, if you're not attracting clients, then you can't make any sales. Focus on the lead generation and your business will grow. If you're getting a lot of leads, but you're not converting, well, that part needs fixing. So it's just really looking at your business through a smaller lens and just getting focused on the area that just really pulls the needle forward.
Wow. You just power packed us with some great stuff there, AJ. You know, we have just been so honored to chat with you and get to know you. And, you know, so as we close here in just a few minutes, could you tell us what are your handlers? So if people want to follow you, they want to follow your memes and understand and be have access to you. What's your handlers? How can they find you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to keep it simple, my website, onlinesupercoach.com, has all of my social medias on there. And one thing I love to do is I love to host live events. Even though I have an online business, I love to do seminars in person. I do them across the states, and my calendar is on there for all my live events. I'd love to have you one of those. I also have a lot of free resources, webinars, video trainings, my podcast. You can find all my books on there. And my social media is really simple. If you go to facebook.com/AJ Fit, AJFIT, you could find me, add me, send me a message. I would love to connect with you.
We'll come see you after we polish off the ice cream that we're hiding in our freezer. So as we close this, AJ, again, thank you so much for the valuable wisdom shares and the authentic space that you're coming from. I took a lot of notes.
Honor.
To share out for this. As we close this, I have one question for you. What's next?
Next is impact. So I used to focus on the financial goal of my business. And once I was doing that, I was getting burnt out. It wasn't really fulfilling me. So my goal every year is how can I impact more people? So I always think about myself. I need to improve my capabilities. If I have, let's say, 100 people in my seminar, how can I get 500 to 1,000 people? How can I make my videos better, become a better communicator, do stand-up comedy, do spoken word poetry, be more engaging, be more animated? I can impact more people, impact more lives, but it really is me focusing on becoming a better person, a better communicator.
So next level is always to get better.
Yes.
And improve more. So thank you so much. AJ, we will be following your work and we do plan to attend one of your live events. Just wave and just say, hey, AJ, it's live unscripted in person. I gained so much just value from this interview, and I'm pretty sure that my beautiful co-host here did as well, Janie.
Absolutely. I just love that acronym. So I'm going to make sure that I keep that activate and that sell and that serve. Definitely acronym is something that I'm going to take with me in business.
Yes, absolutely. Appreciate it.
And if there's anything else that we can do for you as well, AJ, please feel free to reach us. And as we close this, Janie, what a beautiful, powerful another podcast episode. Congratulations, AJ, for becoming our second guest in 2019 with your wisdom shares that will help transform lives with our listeners globally. So as we close this, again, my name is Melody Garcia, and I will see you in the next episode.
And this is Janie Lacy.
Bye, everyone.
Much love.
Did we
we'll
lose
edit
your Michael? Did we lose your Michael?
And we're just going to edit this part of this closing. But AJ, honestly, thank you so much for saying yes. I know you don't know us from Adam. We've been following. I know I've been messaging you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for that. And we appreciate everything that you have shared with us. And I know that you have a hard stop here in a few minutes as you jump into your 2 o'clock. And we will, I'm going to check out the website. And don't be surprised when Janie and I do show up in person.
I would love to have you both. Janie, Melody, thank you. I appreciate it. A lot of fun, very fast-paced and engaging.
Yes, and I was going to say, I hope that you found value in being our guest today.
Yeah, it was great. I was, a little tired in the beginning, and then my energy levels went up from the energy.
It was like,
Thank you for the
truly
boost.
came true. It truly came true. So if you have to hop off, completely understand. I know that you have to prep for your next one in a few minutes, and I'm just going to wait for Michael to show up here and figure out where he went.
Sure.